Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for participating in this session this afternoon. I will speak in Chinese, which is different from Jack. In China, how can we build a digital supply chain is my topic today. Here I would like to share with you 3 subtopics. First is new normal. If we want to build a supply chain, what is our demand side? I'd like to share with you the latest needs of our customers as well as the new normal in this regard. Second is trend. What is the implication for supply chain development and what is supply chain 4.0? Over the past 3 days, we have discussed a lot on this topic, and I would like to share with you Mckinsey's perspective. Thirdly, if I already know the future trend and I have some understanding of Industry 4.0, then how can we get the journey started? What shall we do? What are the factors that we need to take into account? These are the 3 parts of my presentation. Talking about new normals, it is reflected in the following 4 aspects. First, the golden decade of the food and beverage industry is over. The market would be challenging for all of us, and we will experience slowed market growth. And second, consumer behavior changes a lot, especially the consumption behaviors of mid-class people, and shift of consumption offline to online. And thirdly, people's focus on food safety. Thirdly, if or given the change of consumer behaviors, we will also see upgrade of food consumption. We will buy something we never buy before, and we will stop buying something that we buy a lot in the past. And fourth is challenges are increasing or mounting for supply chain of food and beverage companies. In China, the food and beverage market is developing in line with the macroeconomy of China, and we had 1-digit growth of this industry in the recent years. The GDP of China will continue to grow at a rate of 6%, and the same is the growth rate of food and beverage industry. FMCG, apparel, and food and beverage industries experienced 2-digit growth rate in the past decade, but that growth will slow down a lot to single-digit growth, and this is a very visible trend. Secondly, although China's economy slowed down, but we are still growing, and people's mindset will change. When we were poor, what we want is product, but in the future, people will focus more on service. Products, service. Products including food, apparel, and healthcare products are all products. We conducted surveys in several years ago, and people have less interest in products per se. There is a reduction of 30% of interest, and people are more interested in services. They want to have better experience and better lifestyle, and this is what people want in China, and it will have big implications for Chinese food and beverage industry. It would be very difficult, challenging for you to sell pure products, and it will be more attractive if you can sell the entire lifestyle and users' experience. Well, this is a dramatic change in the Chinese market. In the past, the average income level in China was low, relatively speaking. But over the past 10 years, we see a rising middle class, and they account for 30 to 40% of our population. However, their expenditure or spending accounts for 60 to 80% of total consumption. So they have a decisive role in the consumption behaviors in China. What do they want? They want brand. They have very stronger brand loyalties. They focus a lot on the product quality and service level. So according to our survey, according to our latest survey in 2016, alcohol, milk, and fresh products can have a premium price because people would like to pay a higher price for a high-quality product that they want. What is the implication for the supply chain? How can we touch or reach our customers? How can we convey the meaning, a definition, an image, our brand and our facility to our customers through supply chain? This is what we need to think about. In the recent years, people have stronger awareness of brand as well as stories behind the brand. We will also see upgrade of people's consumption in food and beverage industry. In the past, people do not focus a lot on brand and quality, but now it has changed. From 2011 to 2015, people have stronger brand awareness by an increase of 10%. And in food and beverage area, people prefer more fresh fruit juice. But for those unhealthy drinks, such as carbonated soft drinks, fast foods such as KFC and McDonald's, people's intention of consumption or desire of consumption was reduced by 20%. So we need to pay more attention to food safety. Beyond that, the authenticity, the taste of the products also need to be delivered to our customers through supply chain. So people pay more and more attention to their lifestyle and quality of life. And this is our survey on carbonated soft drinks in China. We listed all the figures here. The penetration of these drinks dropped a lot, especially the blue areas. There are 5 to 6 cities which witness significant reduction of consumption of these kind of soft drinks.
That shows how much importance we have attached to health when it comes to beverage consumers. If we go one step further, and there is clearly some elevated need for food and beverage consumption. And we need to consider where do we want to sell the products to. China is quite complicated. We have some first-tier places, and we have tier 3, tier 4, and tier 5 cities. Their growth rates vary. And we can say that if we could make sure that the tier 1, tier 2 city could satisfy our needs, we still need to go further into tier 4 and tier 5, and even the countryside of China. And if we want to do that, it poses some very seriously big challenges on our supply chain. Some large state-owned enterprise, private enterprise, or multinational corporations are all considering that issue. And if we talk about domestic supply chain, we of course will have to talk about O2O. China's really e-commerce giants are really leading the world, and we are even expanding our our advantage compared with the second. The e-commerce territory is already quite fiercely competed on. And the e-commerce platform, it offers orders that are quite fragmented. If we look at the new normal of food and beverage, first of all, the growth rate will slow down. People will look more at service instead of at just the products, and people might get more and more loyal to their favorite brands. And also, we have to focus on high quality, like the taste, freshness, and people will focus more and more on that instead of only on price point. And we have to cater to such changing behavior. So our channels will just have to penetrate into Tier 4 and Tier 5 cities. Such are going to be the long-term mega trend of China's market. And correspondingly, our supply chain will also need to change. If we all agree that such are going to be the new norms in China, in that case, supply chain will just have to make the following 3 different changes. What are they? Namely, first, it's going to be from push to pull. In the past, if we were in the food and beverage industry, once the product is out, we could push it to the end, to the consumers. Now the consumers, they have higher and higher demand. They're not going to accept whatever is pushed to them. It's getting harder and harder. You can see that some large beverage maker, those soda drink makers, they are in a painful process of cutting down their inventory. Why? Because they rely too much on their traditional way of push. Well, tell you what, the push approach doesn't work at all nowadays. So now you will have more in distribution channels. Such distribution channel will be quite complicated. And if you do not have a very segmented approach towards different distribution channels, you are not going to work. So you have to change from push to pull. That's the first trend that the supply chain will have to change towards. Second, we will have to go from cost-driven to speed and agility-driven or flexibility-driven. Many companies only focus on cost when it comes to supply chain management, but from now on, it's going to be harder and harder, especially if you want to manage quite fragmented orders. You cannot focus only on the cost because it's not going to work. And instead, we must really rely on higher quality, a very good pricing point, and try to communicate the best taste of our brand, of our product to the consumers. So in this process, our supply chain must be really flexible and agile. In the past, we focused on large batches. Now they don't have to be such big. And we need to have rapid reaction in the supply chain. And in the meantime, you need to have end-to-end coordination. Our product mix is more and more diversified, and our distribution channel should also be more and more diversified. Then at the raw material end, you know that the price volatility will change so drastically, but we have to take a full control from end to end. Otherwise, the company's profit margin cannot be maintained. And we will take a look at the pricing range of the raw material, and then we will also focus on the pricing range of our finished product. In order to do so, you need to have a very strong capability in coordinating from end to end, and that also poses high requirement for our supply chain. And in the supply chain process, there are numerous data sets and data streams. And in the past, we look at sell in. Now, in the future, we should have sell out. So in summary, three major changes are required. First, they need to be from push to pull. Second, you need to have focus more flexibility and agility. And third, we will be more cloud-driven or big data-driven. Now that I've covered all the new norms, and what does it mean for so-called supply chain management 4.0? How do you define a good supply chain? I think their criteria are the same anytime, anywhere. It will have quite flexible, agile, and have full end-to-end coordination kind of supply chain. And Industry 4.0 is something that could be omnipotent, omniscient, and is everywhere. Then I think this kind of supply chain 4.0 should also be able to do the similar things. We have to coordinate and tie up everything. First, we need to have a full knowledge of all the disruptive technologies available out there that we could master and put into use for us. First, how to apply such technologies in the supply chain, raising our efficiency. Number two, we need to change how do we change our business model and improve it, leveraging the emerging digital technologies, and based on which we will leap from the current generation to the future generation, turning ourselves into a supply chain 4.0. First of all, what are those disruptive technologies out there? I think there are four major parts. One is accessibility. With the rapid technology progress, we could collect the data in almost everywhere by relying on sensors or any different kind of techniques. Right now, food and beverage industry are developing very fast. We have the capability and technology know-how to capture the quality and the whereabouts of any particular product. Now we have the data, but then we need to store them. For example, I am in the food industry. I plant a crop, for example. In the crop, once it's planted, harvested from the field, all the way down to it's being sold to the end consumer, it's involving many, like at least 5 to 6 different procedures. Do you think at this moment the data could be connected? You could either trace back or look forward based on such data sets. They are very useful. And then you will think about perhaps we could integrate such data and provide some kind of cloud service, some of which could represent the future trend of our market with which we could guide forward our consumers. And there are many different emerging companies and startups doing this kind of technology development. many of them available. Number two, we could look at artificial intelligence. One is IA analysis. The AlphaGo was able to defeat a Korean Go master. Theoretically, it's similar. How do you generate some kind of a good software which could analyze tons and tons of data and come up with a conclusion of how you need to develop your business. So planning and forecast capability are the two most difficult challenges for any industry, especially in food and beverage industry. In the past, we may only look at one or two, moving parts, parameters, but such artificial intelligence is able to capture like tons and hundreds and thousands of different parameters to come up with the conclusion. And many different artificial intelligence machines or the software are capable of self-learning. There are some forerunners in Europe that are trying to do similar things, and some Chinese companies are following suit. And the third aspect is human-machine interface. Google Glass, Apple Watch are just some typical examples. And they are actually also applied in food and beverage industry, especially when it comes to warehousing. I could have a touch screen through which I know what one batch of commodities, when will they expire, when did they ship in, and when are they supposed to be shipped out. And last but not least, from digital to physical. For example, 3D printing, especially in the food and beverage industry. If you are trying to switch from one particular mode to the other, then 3D printing gives you a quite flexible tool to achieve that. So in summary, one is data computational power connectivity. One is analytics intelligence. Third one, human-machine interaction. And the fourth is digital to physical conversion. There are many startups that are currently engaged in developing such technologies, and we should always pay constant attention to that. This is just one example. It's a Europe-based software developer, Blue Yonder. Its main business is to make forecasts based on 200 to 300 different parameters. Usually we use 2 or 3 parameters, and they are a self-learning machine. They could always refine their forecast. It sounds a bit like a sci-fi, but there are a number of software companies that are actually engaged in this business, and it will really help lead the multi-channel and big data analysis in China. Now that we have all these different technologies available out there, but how do we make the best use of them and leverage them to improve the efficiency of our supply chain? That's something I'm going to talk a bit with you all. Here I have a compass. It's able to showcase to you all the technologies and where they are actually going to work. At the end of the day, supply chain resolve the issue of service cost, capital, and agility. The core competence of a good supply chain are such 5 different aspects I just mentioned, and where are their values lie? For example, planning, physical flow, performance management, and order management, and collaboration, and last one, supply chain strategy. You have to design that supply chain strategy. And for each and every value proposition, there are corresponding technologies existing there.
To give you an example, in terms of planning, we need to do projected planning. And Bruyang is doing very well in this regard. It can collect and analyze all the variables of your company. It can collect all your variables and do regression analysis and give you the most valuable or useful variable for you. And I think this is a very useful tool. In the physical flow, the automatic inventory reduction is very popular, and we see some automated practices. And here, once the goods come, it can be sorted and picked and transported in an automated way. And we have already seen the progresses and advances of these kind of technologies available on the market. And we need to adopt these technologies and tools based on our own context. According to the cases that we have engaged, we can say that it can bring us huge benefits of a cost reduction. For example, we can see 40 to 50% of a cost reduction if we moved or upgrade to supply chain 4.0. And once we have all these technologies as well as such a framework, what is the implication for the business model of our organization? If I already have these tools, but the model doesn't change, then it is useless. There are three main trends regarding new business models. First is as a service business model. Second, platforms. Third, information services. And I'd like to share with you an example here. In China, real estate is the most popular or attractive industry. And there are different categories of properties in China, including commercial, residential, and industrial properties. And the logistics properties are the most popular among industrial used properties. But once you have built warehouses, you need to lease it so that you can get rental. Many people believe that for FMCG industry, we should contact big retailers, and we can lease very big or huge warehouses to these big retailers. But the retailers are only a few in China. So how can you compete for these clients? I think we can stop only looking at or chasing big retailers. We can focus on some small or micro-sized clients. They do not need huge space, and they only will use your property for a short period of time, for example, 3 to 6 months. Why in the past we couldn't serve these kind of clients? Because we don't have such a supply chain equipped with proper technology to serve them. But now there are already technologies available on the market, and cloud computing as well as other technologies. We can track the performance of these small clients, and it would be very attractive business model. There is a huge number of small-sized clients in China, and they are the long tail in the industry for the years to come. The turnover or the revenue of these small clients is small, and they don't have IT infrastructure. Then we could provide a cloud-based warehouse management system. Once you use our warehouses, you can share the warehouse management system and analyze your inventory. And you can also use the camera to monitor the situation of your warehouses. Even you are at home, you can use iPad or mobile phone to monitor your warehouses. So this is the cloud-based services that we can provide for them. And thirdly is information services. Once I collect information from these clients, I can provide customized services or derivative services to them. For example, clients can buy, or we can provide insurance products as well as other derivative service products to those small clients. So our business models will change a lot because of these three trends. Last but not least, how can we get the journey started? As I said before, you need to be equipped with 5 competences. First is digital mindset. And few companies have talent in this regard, so you need to invite talent from outside to join your company. And you need to provide room for development for these talent. And second, put in place an enabling collaborative ecosystem in your organization so that the talent can work together with other people and find out solutions. Thirdly, we need to reuse data as a valuable asset. In the past, we only store data in our computer, but there are much valuable information behind data. So we need to pay more attention to the management of data. And fifth, two-speed implementation of a two-speed system or data architecture. And fifth is cybersecurity. Well, this is my presentation. That's the end of my presentation, and I would like to take your questions. Any questions from the floor? Any questions from the floor? I have a question. Many companies use different systems to achieve collections of data. But this kind of data is not translated into useful information. And we are a traditional manufacturer, and we have existing numbers, figures, and data, but it is not processed in a useful way. How can we do that? Well, I don't urge you to invest a lot in softwares and hardware, but I urge you to make best use of your existing data. But how to achieve that? You need to know what kind of supply chain you need to develop. Otherwise, you will lose many useful data. As a manufacturer, you need to know the needs of your customers. Do they need a cost-oriented supply chain, or a faster speed supply chain, or customized supply chain? Once you can answer this question, then you can know what kind of data you need to build such a supply chain. Do you have such kind of data in your database? And if you don't have, then you need to find ways to collect this kind of useful data. I have a question. In your presentation, you mentioned the future trend or development of e-commerce, and that will be a blue ocean. And when you transact with those e-commerce websites or platforms, they are reluctant to share with you their data unless you are their strategic partners. And also you mentioned service is very important, so that those electronic platforms will use their own people to do distribution, management of inventory, so the cost is very high. They cannot earn any profit from it. So how do you comment on that? Well, I do think that it's blue ocean, and second, it's true that nobody yet get money or get profit from it. Well, e-commerce in the areas of fresh and frozen food is really challenging. First is safety, because you need to source or procure these kinds of products from different sources, and once safety incidents happened, it will have very bad implications. And second is cost control. Is it worthwhile for people to pay a high price to buy these kind of products? Well, talking about safety, those e-commerce companies doing the business of fresh food begin to extend their value or industrial chain. They want to have their own land to grow or farm their raw materials so as to control the quality of their products in a more effective way. Secondly, there is a paradox here. Is it important for you to do a platform, a model? Because cost reduction is really an important issue. Is it possible that you can work with a third party so that you can provide the refrigerated vehicles on a platform? Then the sharing of information is very important, because there are different. There are about 3 to 4 points which are very important in the entire supply chain. And lastly, in this area, how can we define quality? This is an issue here. The price of a beef per unit can be as high as 200 and as low as 50 yuan. But how can you deliver the high quality message to your consumers so that they would like to pay such a premium? For example, in Japan, they make and grow and sell small potatoes, small tomatoes, very expensively, and they control the entire production and farming process in a very rigid way, and the sweetness as well as the taste of those products are really unique and different from the normal or ordinary way, so people would like to pay a high premium, and this is the future direction that we need to move. Well, I have a question. In e-commerce logistics, we have Alibaba, JD.com, and Walmart. What's the difference between these kinds of businesses? And second, what are the opportunities for third-party logistics companies in e-commerce area? Well, I think the supply chains of Alibaba, JD.com, and Walmart are totally different. In the past, Ali never do logistics, and JD set up their own distribution centers and warehouses. Walmart is an offline, not an online company, so they are totally different. But moving forward, there are several future trends. First is the trade-off between light assets and heavy assets. Ali used to be light asset company, and JD.com is heavy asset company, but we will see a convergence of these two in the future. For example, in big cities, we will see heavy asset approach, while we will see light asset approach in third and fourth tier cities.
And Walmart is also doing a similar thing. They will be very asset heavy in some pretty good locations, prime locations. But for third-party logistics operators, it's all about how to compete with e-commerce giants. If you want to have a differentiated competition and win over the third-party logistics, then tell you what, you can never win online. So for third-party logistics, what you can do is first of all relying on your asset. Normally, e-commerce don't have that much of an asset, and if you are a rich historic, you gotta have rich history, then you normally have a rich historical legacy. And also, third-party logistics has the opportunity to serve a number of different e-commerce giants, then you might see opportunities. If I may follow up on one question. Alibaba, JD, or Amazon, they all look at value chain integration and they adopt that as their approach. Do you think the third-party logistics operation, have they got any opportunity points? I think there is no absolute yes or no. It does not necessarily mean it's correct to have integration of their value chain. BAT are capable of doing that because they are big enough, so they have the leeway to make the choice. I think the third-party logistics, we are very fragmented kind of a nation. In the meantime, we have many homogeneous kind of competition. Now, more importantly, we need to find a sticking point for myself. And you might find your competitive edge, be it your technology, your asset, or your service. It could be anything. But once you have solidified your leg up over others, then you can think about your future direction.